Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Before I forget, first podcast shirt of the year just came out. It's pretty simple. It says surrender with a line through it, meaning don't surrender. Link to it in the show notes, shop.clearedhotpodcast.com. Get one if you want, don't if you don't. My guest today is Douglas Taurel. He is an actor, a thespian, if you will. And honestly, this is my favorite part about the podcast. This is what I enjoy the most. Being exposed to people that I probably never would have had the chance to be exposed to, sitting down, having a conversation with them about what makes them tick. Specifically, and I'm going to read this right from his website. He has a play called The American Soldier. His words from his website, which is theamericansoldiersoloshow.com, to raise awareness of the struggles of veterans and military families face when they either come home from war, transition out of the military, and of course, the invisible wounds of post-traumatic stress. More importantly, I want to help those who have no connection to the military better understand what service to our nation sincerely means. He describes what the play is, so I'm not going to get into that. But it's fantastic. I love the concept. It spans multiple generations, multiple wars. It's really cool. And he has a skill that I just will never have. The ability to get up and perform in front of people, the desire to be an actor, good on you. No way in hell am I ever participating in that. I don't know if there's anything that could make me feel more uncomfortable. And I don't really know why, but whatever. Irrelevant when it comes to the show. Today's episode is going to be 376 with Douglas Taurel. Before we get into that, give me a brief 1 minute. Let's pay the bills here real quick. Today's episode is brought to you by Montana Knife Company. Let's dive right into the website and see what they currently have to offer. Now, I've said this many times. If you're if you're a fan of the podcast, you're probably going to have heard the episodes I've done with Josh Smith. He is the founder of Montana Knife Company, the youngest master bladesmith, real overachieving asshole, if you will. The knives he makes are right down the road in Frenchtown, Montana, about 90 miles from where I'm sitting right now. Born and bred in Montana, Montana inspired, but truly a global brand. They are exploding. I'm looking at right now the mini speed goat. Their rotating banner across the top shows a small variety of the knives that they have to offer. I'm just going to rotate down and it's going to show you the stuff that they have in stock. Some of the versions are going to be sold out, but you'll tell immediately different blade types, chef, butcher, meat eater edition knives, collaborations. This is a great chef knife, the Meat Church chef knife. I'm just going to click view all and let's see what they have to offer. Actually, I'm going to go up here to just shop knives, all knives, not the ones that are in stock. I'll talk about that in a minute. I'm just going to scroll through this. For those of you who are watching along on video, you can see the ridiculous amount of offerings that they have. You'll also notice that the vast majorities of these say sold out. And the reason for that is that they sell out within 60 seconds, 120 seconds. So be quick when you get the notification that they're back in stock. They're releasing them Thursdays and Saturdays. You can sign up for text and email notifications. They oftentimes will do drops outside of those dates. Be fast. If you get the chance, get one. All I ask is this. First, support a really cool brand founded by really cool people that are bringing jobs back into Montana. They're actually building a massive warehouse in Missoula right now, production facility. Secondly, if you're going to buy something at some point in time in their purchasing portal, they're going to ask you how you heard about Montana Knife Company. Do me a favor, put down Cleared Hot or Andy Stump, whichever one of those options actually present themselves, because I'm not sure, or both. Or don't put anything down. It's up to you. But that's how you can help me help them. Let's get back into the show.
Okay, got the red smoke.
Gun run, north or south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. You're cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
Yeah, the subways from a New Yorker. I mean, obviously, almost every day that goes by, that's not happening.
Well, when you don't... So, after 9/11, New York was the fucking safest place you could ever be in.
How was it before? And actually, what brought you to New York? Are you from NYC?
No, I'm from Houston originally.
Okay.
Well, believe it or not, I was born in L.A. My dad was a merchant marine, lived there for about 8-9 years, and then my dad got tired of driving to Long Beach to the Union to get work, and so he decided to move to Houston where the Union was closer. So he could ship out of Galveston And
all the ships going out through the Gulf and all that. Okay.
yeah.
Yep.
So we moved to Houston. So I grew up in Texas, basically. My life as a kid was in Texas. And so I became an actor. I can go into that story, how I got into it. But when I moved with my girlfriend at that time in 2000. And so that's why I got to New York. And it was great, man. It was really, New York was a lively place. It was exciting. It was fun, And then, 9/11 hit. And so after 9/11, like the security in 9/11 was insane in New York because
Post 9/11.
Post 9/11, because everyone was looking. If you farted the wrong way, they were going to pull you to the side. It was all about terrorism. It was all about, we had Apache helicopters parked on Bryant Park. So
I feel like that should be Thursdays.
Yeah, those
things are awesome.
They are awesome. They are awesome. And I remember looking at them thinking, "Fuck, man, is this real? Like, am I living in a movie?" Because
you take in the pretty close proximity to 9/11 that happened, because I can't imagine they kept them there for a long time.
No, but for about 6 months, man.
Okay, that sounds about right.
Yeah, about 6
If it was
months.
6 years later, that
No.
Deep end.
But my point was like, all the subway stops had guys with AKs. Every subway stop. It was
AKs or M4s?
Or I don't. What's the difference between an AK or M4?
Well,
you may know. I wouldn't
other
know.
than almost everything.
Okay.
So an AK is a traditional European Eastern Bloc.
How about a big gun?
That probably would be it. My guess is an M4 or AR based platform. 7.62 by 39 is an AK-47. It's a large round, and I think, what is it, 5.56 by 35, something like that for a 223 round. People are going to eviscerate me in the comments because I should know, but I never cared because I just stuffed them in my magazine and never paid attention. My guess would be if you're talking about police.
Police and soldiers. If
it was soldiers, U.S. soldiers, definitely an M4 platform, not an AK.
Yeah. They were on all the platforms. So so the place was locked down, and then slowly, like you said, that kind of dissipated. I remember flybys around on the Hudson River jets and that went on for about a month. So that type of security kind of lasted for almost 10 years, really, because then the wars in the Middle East started, and then New York was like always the center for attention, and so you could be completely comfortable. I was there in 2000 with my wife, now girlfriend, then 3-4 o'clock in the morning, walking by yourself, her walking by herself. Not a thing was going to happen to you because there was cops everywhere.
Yeah.
And there was like attention, and everyone was looking, and if you look funny, and then we had to deal with the anthrax, so they're on the subway cart. So it's a complete different world. And then COVID happened, and you take cops away, and then you get people who get burned alive on subways.
I had heard that as far as this is a horrible question to ask, but I had heard that jumping off of those platforms in front of the trains is one of the methods that people will choose to end their lives.
That I don't know. I don't know. I think
a rough one.
That'd be a rough one. I'm sure if you're doing that, you have other issues. I'm sure. Yeah, I don't know about that, but I do know that that's not the way I want to go.
Yeah,
getting in front of a moving subway. But there are stories of people who have jumped on the platforms to save other people. There was a really famous story of a guy, a construction guy or a maintenance guy, who somebody fell. I think it was somebody was having a seizure, and he jumped and fell on top of him, and the subway went over him, and he saved him. In fact, and I think he got invited to one of the not inaugurations, the presidential speeches, and
State of the Union.
State of the Union, thank you. And he got an award or something.
As he should.
Yeah.
Where were you guys on 9/11?
So I lived in Hoboken, New Jersey, which is right across the river. In fact, Hoboken probably lost more people from the 5 boroughs. So Hoboken is considered the 6th borough. It's in New Jersey, but it's literally right across the river from the Hudson. So it's like from my door to Times Square is 20 minutes.
Okay.
So a lot of people lived in Hoboken. A lot of finance guys lived in Hoboken because it was cheaper, it was quieter.
Yeah, they travel in for work and out for home.
Yep, exactly. And so I was a personal trainer at that time, so I would take the Path, which is a version of the Jersey subway, and I would go from there into the World Trade Towers. And that was my commute. I would wake up around, depending what client I had, I'd wake up at 6 or 7 in the morning, take the Path, and all of the trains, every subway line, the ferry, they all emptied out in front of the World Trade Towers.
Like from underground, you'd come up the stairs and you were at the base of them, essentially?
Yeah, and my biggest regret is never taking a picture of inside the World Trade Towers around 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, because it was like a sea of humanity. It's hard to if you've
It's like
never,
every human being on Earth was there?
yeah, but no one is bumping into each other. I mean, it's like it's a choreography that everyone knows where they're going. Everyone's going to work, right? So you have your path, they have their path. You know how to dodge, and they had these stairs that went forever up. In fact, have you been to the 9/11 Museum?
Yes.
Okay.
Very, very moving. Hard to actually walk through.
Yep, for me too, especially being there and seeing the whole thing.
Yeah.
But they give a version of those stairs when you're going down into it. When I think it's by, where the blue wall is. There's right there. But they went forever, right? And they were, I think, 4 and 4. 4 going up, 4 going down. Obviously, in the morning, the 4 going up.
Yep.
And the 4 going out were empty, and the 4 going up. And so you would get up, you get your coffee, you get your muffin, and that was my path. So I'd get into World Trade Towers in the morning. I'd get a muffin, I'd get a cup of coffee. I'd walk out. I'd walk from Cornwall Street all the way up to Whitehall Street, which was about a 10, 15-minute walk. And usually, if the weather was beautiful, that's what I would do specifically. I was a big history buff, so there was Trinity Church right there, and so I would always go to Trinity Church if I had time, and I'd read, I'd memorize monologues, because I was fascinated and just addicted to learning stories about, who was buried in that cemetery. If it was, I think one of the Adams kids were buried there, and then you kind of felt like you were walking through American history. That's where America really started, right there in around Whitehall Street at Trinity Church, and it's the beginning of Manhattan. And so, on 9/11, my first client was at 9 in the morning on that beautiful day, and to this day I'll never forget that day because it was such a beautiful day.
I've heard that from a lot of people, like just crisp, beautiful, clear day.
Yeah, in fact, whenever Scott Mann, I don't know if you've heard of Scott Mann. He came and saw my show, and
I feel like I have heard the name, but I don't know the context.
Pineapple Express.
Gotcha.
So he saw my play up in Detroit, and we went for dinner afterwards. And I was telling him, he was asking me, why I wrote the play, and so I was telling him, and I said, and I was describing the day, and he was like, "That's probably a version of PTS that you have," and I never really thought about it to that point because I can describe it in detail, everything in detail, and not that I have PTS, but the way he was explaining it to me because you know it in so much in detail. And to this day, if I walk out on a beautiful day when there's not a cloud, weather's around 70, 72 degrees, spring or fall, September, I'm right back there. I can remember everything about it. And I just remember that day, I went in early. I woke up, it was a beautiful day, so I went in early, get a cup of coffee, and I was going to walk. So you could either walk from the World Trade Towers or you could take a subway if you wanted to where I worked at. But it was such a beautiful day. I said, I'm going to walk. I'm going to walk today. So I came out. First plane hit at 8:46. So I was at the underneath the World Trade Towers, and the World Trade Towers.
You were underneath at the subway station when that hit?
I had just walked out.
Okay.
But
did you hear the airplane coming?
So not the first one. So I walked out around 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:15. I got to the gym at about 8:30, and then the first plane hit, 8:46. Didn't even hear it, really. I had a client at 9 who came in early, and he was freaked out. He had just walked out when the first plane, he was literally walking out when the first plane hit. And for people who don't know, World Trade Towers were huge, massive. In fact, when they were up, you didn't even notice the Manhattan skyline. When they fell down, it was the first time you noticed the Empire State Building. So being in a quarter of a mile from them, they're just like towering over you. In fact, when I first got to New York, I remember being really lost. And I had a map trying to find my way to go to auditions. And this older lady said, "Son, where are you going?" And I said, "Well, I'm trying to go to the north side of Manhattan." And she said, "Well, let me show you something. You see those buildings over there? That's south. And if you know where south is, you know where north is. And if you know north is, you know where west is, you know where east is." She goes, "Whenever you get lost, just look up and you'll see those two towers. And you could be I mean, you could be all the way up in Spanish Harlem. You could see them forever, man. Mm-hmm. You could see them coming in from Connecticut, driving. You could start seeing them. So I got to the World Trade Tower, to my gym. I had just walked out of 9/11. It was a beautiful day. I remember just walking on the side, just thinking, looking at the Trinity Church, drinking my coffee, eating my muffin, getting there. And then my first client at 9 o'clock was there early, and he was all freaked out. And he's like, something happened at the World Trade Towers. And I said, well, what happened? He said, I don't know, something's going on. I go, well, let's train, man. I mean, sure, it's nothing, dude. And at that time, everybody thought it was a Cessna.
Yep.
No one knew what it was. And so I started training. And then the second plane hit, which I believe was at 9:03 or 9:02. And that one felt like turbulence on a plane. That one you felt. I don't know how it hit it or what, but you felt, I mean, everything shook. And then everyone stopped. And I remember putting the dumbbells down, and we walked outside. And just, I remember the scene looking like, that was either that year or the year before, Godzilla came out. And there's a scene in the movie of Godzilla where everyone's climbing over the taxis and looking up and looking at Godzilla, and they're like, you know.
Problem is, there's like 17 movies.
It was the latest one in 2000.
I think another one honestly came out this month. You want to talk about a franchise that's really getting its money squeezed out of it?
Godzilla.
That and Superman. They're redoing that one for the
I know. I can't
time.
watch Superman anymore.
What about Superman can't you watch?
I'm a Christopher Reeve guy, and I was so being old, and that's my movie, and I think I watched the second one after that, but then
with Cavill,
built dude, he looked like freaking Superman. I mean, Christopher Reeve was pretty ripped too. When you look at him,
not comparatively,
no, but for that time, he was pretty ripped
for sure.
He was pretty ripped,
yeah.
But yeah, so I just remember crawling over the cars and thinking, man, this feels like Godzilla, and then just seeing the buildings up. And then people were, panicking. Some people were crying. I was pretty numb through all that. I grew up in a really kind of turbulent childhood, and I had a lot of insanity in my life, and so a lot of screaming in the house and stuff. And so I kind of develop a mechanism of going numb. Whenever there's a lot of stress, I'll just go numb. And
do you recognize when you slip into that place?
Yeah, pretty fast. Like,
is it intentional or subconscious?
I think it's subconscious. I thought about that at times, but like if there's a lot of something going on, I just go numb. My heart, I can literally feel my heart calm down, and I think a lot of it is hiding when my dad was screaming a lot, and I would a mechanism of trying to calm myself down, and I would hold my little sister as well.
How do you get yourself out of it?
I think consciously I would just come out of it, It's kind of weird. It's like you feel it and you see it, but you're controlling it. It's kind of like you're out of mind in a way.
Almost like a third-person view?
Yeah, you become like kind of third-person view. Like you can feel yourself getting numb. You're in a dangerous situation. I mean, it would happen on the subway sometimes. Like crazy shit would happen on the subway. And I would feel myself go numb, and I can notice my surroundings really well. And then I start thinking about an exit of some kind. Like, what am I going to do? What should I do? And it's just something that I think I learned through trauma, And so I remember 9/11 being pretty peaceful, I knew things weren't right. Things were crazy. A lot of the girls were crying. They were freaking out. And what was really weird, I remember 9/11 is because we were in a gym, so there were treadmills, and all the treadmills had TVs. So you could see what was happening on 9/11 on the TV, but you were right next to it. So it'd be kind of like us watching TV and some disaster going on over there.
And you can see it on the horizon.
Yeah, and then you'd walk out the front doors, and you're like, shit, that's right here. And so I would go in and out from the gym. It was a big glass building. It was a beautiful building. And I remember thinking, man, I wonder what's going to happen. So I walked outside. You couldn't call anybody. I couldn't call my girlfriend. All the lines were locked up. Satellites were jammed. And I remember just standing outside and looking at the buildings and thinking, what was going on?
Hold on a second. What satellites were jammed?
Oh, I mean, phone lines jammed. But they were towers. Sorry, the towers.
Okay.
Yeah, the towers. The towers.
What the fuck were you using satellites for?
I had
Yeah.
Yeah. And and so and then we started watching people jump.
Yeah.
And
it's not often talked about, the number of people who made that choice.
No, No, and that was really surreal. And I remember being next to a female trainer, and she just completely broke down. And I grabbed her, and I said, "Let's go inside. It's okay." And then people were talking about it. In fact, the part of the 9/11 museum that I can't do is that part. They have a video section, and when you go through the museum on the right corner, they have a video section showing that, and they show that lady the infamous lady who she pulls her dress down for her last semblance of dignity.
Yeah.
And she jumps. And
where were you when they started to fall? Not the people, the buildings.
so right there. So I went back inside, and I can't remember what time the first building fell, but I saw it on TV falling. And I remember thinking, holy shit, that's right out there. And I remember I ran outside. The building had completely fallen by the time I come outside, but I saw the fume of smoke coming. And what I try to tell people is, so it was a big glass building, glasses. Imagine this whole room just glass, and it'd be like someone just dumped a bucket of gray paint. And I remember seeing the smoke coming down, and I remember telling this guy, Bernard, I said, but he was a trainer. I said, Bernard, put the towels. Again, that's kind of like my mechanism. I started thinking about an out, and so I said, put the towels underneath the doors. This shit's going to be coming in. So we started grabbing towels, putting them in, because I worked construction when I was in high school, so I knew there was a lot of asbestos in the building. The shit you think about when you're under stress. And I was thinking, I don't want to breathe asbestos in. So we put that in, and then it'd be like that curtain behind you. It just went gray. It just went completely gray. So, you're dealing with that. You're trying to, digest what happened there in 9/11.
Did you hear them falling, the buildings coming
No,
down?
I didn't hear them fall. I didn't hear them fall. I could hear the rumble of the smoke. That's what I do. I could hear the rumble and the smoke, and to this day, the car alarms. As the smoke, every car alarm went on. It was going on nonstop. You can hear that. And you can hear, because the debris had hard stuff in it, and it was hitting glass, breaking glass. It's like it wasn't smoke. It was literally like a blob of metal coming at you, and it was just, you could hear that noise. So we closed the doors. Really, pandemonium was really breaking out back then. I remember thinking, fuck, what are we doing? What's going on here? I mean, this is kind of crazy. And, you try to talk to people. I remember talking to a guy named Vishnu, who was Indian, and he was really, freaked out about it. And I said, look, man, we just got to keep everybody in here. Let's don't let anybody out until someone says, let's get out of the building. And then we saw the other building fall down. And then I was like, holy shit. And we put more towels in. And then we just sat there, kind of like everybody went numb. Everybody in the building went numb. We were trying to figure out, what does this mean? What do we do? You couldn't call. You couldn't get a line out. And I remember everybody got around 2 or 3 treadmills because you couldn't see outside. You didn't want to open the doors. Mm-hmm. And also people were banging on the glass doors to get in. So we would open the door to get in, and smoke would get in. And after the second building, I remember an African-American woman. She had blood down her face. She had one shoe on. I remember that, heel. And we let her in, and she was just completely just emotionally distraught. And we sat her down we had a bench on the side. We sat her down on the bench. We gave her water. And she didn't know what happened. And so we went back to the TVs to see, like, what the fuck is going on. By then we knew it was a terrorist attack. And we stayed there for probably an hour. And then I remember a fireman, a big dude, came, busted the door open. And he was a big dude. He was probably like 6'3", 6'4". Fire guys, they got all the fucking gear on, and they look even bigger with all the gear on. And he just said, I want everybody to get the fuck out of here right now. And he had this look, and I'll never forget, that don't fucking question me. Don't fucking ask me a question. Get the fuck out of this building now. Everyone jumped. We said, yes, sir. We grabbed our stuff. Everybody started grabbing. I grabbed towels, and I started giving them to people to put over their heads to cut through the smoke so they wouldn't breathe in the smoke.
Was it clearing at all at that point?
No, fuck no, man. We were literally, him and a couple other guys started leading us in a line. And we were being led to the FDR, which is on the east side of Manhattan. And so I grabbed my 2 clients. I had a 9 and a 10 o'clock, and my guy was really freaked out. He was a small guy. He was a lawyer. His name was David. I haven't talked to him in years, but I hope he's doing well. He was really nervous, great guy. And I grabbed him, and I grabbed this other client of mine named Marlena, and they didn't know what to do because they both lived in New York, and they had basically sealed New York from 34th Street down. You couldn't go anywhere. So I said, look, I lived in Hoboken. So I said, look, and everybody was being evacuated to Hoboken and Jersey City. They're the 2 cities on the west coast of Manhattan going west. So, and all the ferries were there. They were bringing ferries from Connecticut, and so they were basically ferrying everybody from 34 down all the way across to Hoboken, New Jersey. So I grabbed them. We left. We went through the smoke. I remember walking on the FDR thinking, this is what it must be like to be a refugee. I mean, this has to be like it. I mean, we were walking with towels. No one was talking. We were all just walking upside at FDR, silence. You would hear crying in the back. You'd hear some yelling and screaming. But for the most part, everyone was just marching up. We were going to a spot to get on the ferry to go back to Hoboken. I grabbed my clients, and that was the first time I saw Manhattan without the World Trade Towers, because we were on the Hudson River. And so we were seeing things from TV. We saw the towers come down, but we didn't get a perspective until we got on the ferry, until we were on the Hudson River. And I remember the ferry got in the middle of the Hudson, and I remember just looking back and just not seeing the towers, which was surreal, right? Because for so long you just always assumed that these buildings were there, and then you couldn't really see the skyline because the smoke was just. I mean, it was just like, I always describe it. It looked like some big giant brought a hibachi grill, and it was just smoking all of Lower Manhattan. And that smoke lasted for months, man, for 6 months, for a year. I mean, the fires went on for almost 2 years down there below. They were so hot, 1,600 degrees Fahrenheit. And so I grabbed my 2 clients, and I took them home. They had made, I can't remember, I believe we had cell phones. I can't remember how they called, but they had called family. They had gotten a call out, and they were waiting for them in New Jersey, and they got picked up. Both of them got picked up by friends and family. And then Hoboken's only a square mile. So I brought them home. They left. My wife was there, girlfriend then. She was like, oh my God, the whole thing, hugging me, and so, and then she goes, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm good, man. And I remember, the other thing I remember is being starving, because I hadn't eaten anything, and my adrenaline just kicked in. I think my adrenaline finally had come down. I go, I'm fucking starving, man. Let's go get some food. And emotion hits people in very different ways. And I just remember thinking, I'm hungry. I want to go eat. And there was a great Italian bar right next to the apartment we rented. Everyone was in it watching TV. It was an old place called Leo's. Had been there from the 50s. And we went in. People were watching, and people were trying to kind of grasp the news. And I sat down. I ordered a spaghetti bolognese. She ordered lasagna, and I ordered 2 beers. And I remember my wife got a beer, and it was flat. My girlfriend, and she wanted to complain about it. And I said,
not the day.
That's what I told her. I said, Erica, look at the TV. Drink the fucking beer.
Yeah.
And I think she snapped. She was not there where everybody was at, because she didn't experience it. And then once she kind of snapped, like, oh, I know. What was I doing?
It's a very nearly impossible thing to compute.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we ate, and then, that's kind of where, and that was 2001. I only been in New York for, 1 year, and then you go back, and I had thoughts of leaving. Like, well, I came there to be an actor, to pursue my dream. And I'm like, well, maybe I should leave, maybe this is not what I want to do.
Why'd you choose New York over LA? Not, and let me tell you, I don't know much about the acting scene.
Yeah.
But for most people, and maybe this is something from TV and movies, where do young people go when they want to be discovered? They head to the West Coast, to LA. I'm curious why you chose New York over that.
Well, back then there was really two cities. There was New York. I mean, there was New York or L.A. Those were the two cities you would go to if.
Same industry though, like same.
Yeah,
kind
well, I
of
mean, obviously,
type stuff, movie type stuff was existing.
Yeah,
in both?
for the most part. I mean, film and TV. Like, if you have no passion in theater, you're going to go to L.A. And if you have passion for theater, but both film and TV meccas are it's New York or L.A.
Okay.
Well, it was easy because my wife was going to grad school, and we were just dating at the time. And she's, I was ready to get out of Houston, and I said, "Look, listen, I can't do this, and I want to get out." And I was going to go to L.A. because I was born in L.A. And she said, "Listen, I'm going to go to grad school. Why don't, wherever I get accepted, let's go together. And if it doesn't work out, we're in a city that we both want to be in. We're not in, Topeka, Kansas." And I said, "Yeah, sure." So she got accepted. She got a full ride to NYU. So we're okay, let's go to New York. And, I had had success going east always as a young man. I got a scholarship to go to Ole Miss from Texas. My first acting job was in North Carolina. My parents actually met in New York. So I thought, I'll just keep going east. Maybe east is my direction. And and so that's why we were in New York. And so that happened, and then you try to. It was it was so surreal, and I remember what we were talking about camaraderie before we started. That's when New York was magical. It was really the most magical place you could have ever been in. People would stop, they would help you, and I remember on the west side. And this went on for a long time. All the fire trucks going back and forth, right? And people clapping, kind of like COVID, but in a more sincere way. Everyone had an American flag. It was the most patriotic, the country had ever been. It was a wonderful place. People were looking out. It was a scary place too, because you would read on the paper, okay, Taliban is choosing next targets, anthrax in the subways, and you'd be on the subway going, oh fuck. You'd be like, and you look at people like, don't make a funny move, dude, because and so it was a great place. It was wonderful, man. It was just really fun, and it was safe. It was kind of a love fest. People wanted to help each other. And that's kind of how I got really addicted to what was happening in the Middle East, because ironically, my father was very patriotic. He was a Syrian Jew, Argentinian Syrian Jew, and he was always grateful to this country, and he was always grateful to what America did during the Second World War, and he was a very proud American. And I got my patriotism through him, which is ironic because we had a kind of a turbulence relationship. And he would always watch this. I don't know if you remember this documentary called The World at War.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it was an old documentary, and he watched. It was basically the Hitler documentary, and he would watch that over and over, and he used to drive me nuts. In fact, I would lie on the couch sleeping when he would watch that. So, so I felt really. I wanted to find out what was going on in the Middle East. I was always the character. I always had the character. If you punch me, I'm going to punch you back. So I wanted revenge. I wanted those guys to be punished. I was one of the people who wanted the Iraq War.
So was I.
Yeah.
Time and context is a bitch.
Yeah. Not a good decision. And it's
Unless
hard for
you
me.
were directly tied to the monetary value of the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, unless you were part of Halliburton.
Yeah.
You did well.
I think they did okay.
Yeah.
Shareholders might have been happy for about 2 decades. Probably still are to some degree.
For sure.
Why'd you leave New York? Because I was asking you where you came from here today, and you said back in Tejas.
Yeah, well, I mean, COVID. Just couldn't do it anymore.
They changed the city that much?
Oh, dude, Joe Rogan left. The reason why Joe Rogan left LA is the reason why everybody left. It's hard to explain to people the insanity that happened there on both coasts. I mean, you see what's going on in the fires, in the Californian fires right now. And when you read why they're happening, you're like...
Well, one of the main reasons why they're happening is the Santa Ana winds, which are uncontrollable, but they're a yearly event.
True.
And I used to experience them because I lived in San Diego. When those suckers would turn on, it feels like a hairdryer coming out of the eastern California mountains.
But having your water reserves filled would help.
It would.
Would help.
Yes. Yeah, of course. Undoubtedly it would help. I'm reading reports of 80, 90 mile per hour sustained wind. I don't know if there's enough water in the world to stop that.
Yeah, well, that I don't know about.
Yeah.
I mean, that I don't know about. But when you read about what was happening, like the insanity of the decisions that were going, the budget cuts and all that, you're just like. And then, I mean, you couldn't breathe, man. I mean, you couldn't breathe. I mean, they were in your living room. They were in your kid's classroom. The theaters everything was shut down. You were fighting with everybody. You were yelling with everybody. Your friends that you thought were friends were not your friends anymore. It's really hard for people to understand the isolation that happened when you weren't part of that mantra. How you got kind of pushed out, and that's why so many people left both coasts, and they're still leaving. But yeah, that was 2022. Yeah, it's really, for me, it's actually quite emotional. I loved New York. I mean, I built my career there. My kids were born there in Hoboken. I raised my family there. I made my mark as a guy there. I experienced the most probably traumatic thing besides maybe Pearl Harbor or something firsthand. The people are great in New York, besides the politics, they're fucking phenomenal people, hardworking, Irish, Italian, all over the place. The city, the energy is amazing, especially if you're in the arts, if you're an actor, that's where do you want to be, I mean, I studied at Carnegie Hall, I was next to the history, I'm a massive history buff. So, where I studied in Carnegie Hall was a half floor. The building had half floors, and it was below Marlon Brando's apartment, his old apartment, and I would touch that. And so it was. I mean, it's hard to explain, but New York is an amazing place when it's functioning, when it's being run right. It's crazy. Like, you can put up with the insanity when the insanity doesn't come in your bedroom and doesn't fuck with your kid's school, and when everyone leaves you alone, right? I mean, New York was always crazy. I mean, you have to be insane to live there, to pay those rents, and to be on the subway. I mean, there has to be a payback, right? So, yeah. So, so I did that, and then I started getting really. I started reading the paper every day, and I started getting really addicted to what was happening in the Middle East. And then, I guess around 2007, 2008, I started reading stories about guys struggling, and guys who couldn't pay their bills. And
By guys, you mean soldiers?
Yeah. Because they were in the paper all the time,
Really?
Yeah.
I have never been a huge fan of. I guess I consume it digitally, and the Times never had a subscription even on digital. So.
Yeah.
Never been a paper guy.
Yeah, the New York Times. Well, I mean, back then the New York Times was considered the New York Times. It's gone, off course, to say the least. But back then you read the New York Times like it was. Also, as an actor, they had this great thing that they would have the upcoming off-Broadway and Broadway plays that were coming up, and they would review them. And so when I love research. I'm addicted to research. And so I would read that section. I would see who the playwright was, who the director was, and I would research them. I'd find their contact, and I'd reach out to them. And that's how I would find work, right? And I would say, hey, this is how I saw your congratulations on a great reading, on a great review, I think I'm right for your work, I'd love to send you my stuff. And that's how I would network. Mm-hmm. And so I would read that. But then you would read what was going on in the Middle East. And so, I started collecting clippings and stuff that moved me a lot. And then I decided, like around 2007, 2008, maybe I should write a play. I didn't think it was going to be a one-man show. I said, I'm going to write a play. So I would go to the New York Library and I would research stories about veterans, just war stories. And I started with the revolution, ironically enough. And my idea was, because I think it was 2007, 2008, they had elections, and it was a big deal in Iraq. I think Saddam had fallen, and I remember videos of people like using their finger to vote. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, gosh, man, these people are, at that time we were thinking, we're liberating them and they're getting to vote, and here in this country, no one votes. No one votes, man. Don't they understand the sacrifices going on? We should vote. We should vote. So I had this idea of kind of writing a play and reminding people of the revolution. Excuse me, I'm just gonna my eye tears, and so I would go research the revolution, and when you research, I would literally go look at microfiche, and I started. You get into a rabbit hole of research, and then I started reading about the Civil War. Then I started reading about Vietnam, and then I started reading about all the wars, and then I would see stories of what's happening in the Middle East, and then I started reading this thread about how we haven't been taking care of our vets since the Revolution. Joseph Plum, he fought in the Continental Army under George Washington, and he talks about how they never got paid. And a lot of Minutemen, when they came back after the Revolution, they became indentured servants because the pay they were promised they never got. And so to survive, they basically became indentured servants to blacksmith. And then the Civil War, same thing. So I started kind of like, fuck, what the fuck is going on, man? So I started researching. So it led me into a rabbit hole. And so I started collecting, and I would Xerox letters, and I would Xerox. I got into microfiche, which. And if anybody doesn't know what microfiche is,
there's a lot of people that don't know what microfiche is.
It's pretty fun. You can go in a rabbit hole because you can.
Michael, do you know what microfiche is?
No.
We're so old.
Yeah. But you could look up any year, any date from any newspaper all over the world for the most part, and you can read what was going on. And I have this fascination about the past. I've always have. People always ask me, if you can go 100 years forward or 100 years backwards, where would you go? And where would you go?
Do I get to take the knowledge with me, or is it a clean slate?
You can take the knowledge with you.
I'm going backwards. I'd be so rich.
Okay, but only to experience. Only to experience. Like you were going to they're going to put you in a bubble case or a bubble.
So I can only watch.
You can only watch. Yeah.
Forward.
You go forward. Mm-hmm. Why would you go forward?
Because I can't put my finger on the pace of our evolution and trajectory. I just am fascinated to know where it leads.
Yeah. I'd be interesting to learn what it was to be like in the early 1900s.
We kind of know what that was like.
But to really look at it.
Sure.
Firsthand.
But you can gather some information about it now.
True.
Forward, you can gather none. Mm-hmm. I'd rather be a cosmonaut. Go forward.
Well, what if I said you can go back to like 1500? Are you obviously? That's a stupid question. I was going to say, are you a military buff? But are you?
I'm not.
Are you a history buff?
I am neither a military buff nor a history buff, or the combination of the two, a military history buff.
Okay, that's
just because you serve in the military doesn't necessarily mean you are steeped in all the knowledge.
No. But maybe at that you might have a passion like General Lee, and you listen to Grant battles or something.
Resoundingly no.
No. George McClellan. Okay.
I still think I would go forward because that's the true unknown. Even the 1500s, we could make an approximation based off the information that we do have because we do have information.
Yeah.
We don't know about tomorrow, though. And I'm telling you, with technology, the pace that things are evolving, I got to see it a little bit.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Yeah.
So
the problem is you'd be in your little bubble and somebody come cut you in pieces with your lightsaber and you wouldn't be able to come back with any information.
No, that's true. And what's even scary is if you go forward and you realize you don't even exist.
I was going to say, you go forward and it's just black and you're sitting there like,
yeah.
Can we go backwards 20 years?
We're all holograms.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like,
or just the world's not there anymore.
Because, that's even scarier.
Because we're idiots with nuclear weapons and somebody decided to let one off the chain. And yeah, you're just in the shadows like, can we rewind 20 years? And you're still in the shadows like, shit, can we rewind 20 more? And just figure out exactly what happened and where.
Yeah.
Maybe we could warn people. Problem is, I don't know if they'd pay attention.
No, probably they wouldn't because people don't. But so I would collect this information and I would look at microfiche, and then I started getting really passionate. I started really digging into our history and how we treat our soldiers. And so This went on from about 2007, 2008 to all the way about 2013, really. And I would, I'm like a dog with a bone. Once I get into a project, I won't let it go. And so I would be in between auditions when I had time. I would go to New York Public Library. Also, I fucking loved it. I loved reading about it. I love, reading about stories of the Civil War and the Revolution, like reading about how,
They're hard people.
they were hard people and they were strong. And then, you just learn some fascinating things, like, how illiterate a lot of the revolutionary guys were, and I would read their diaries. Today I go eat monkfish. Tomorrow we eat monkfish. Looking forward to go marry, eat monkfish. It's fascinating, reading that, and then you come across someone like Joseph Plum or Ebenezer Fox, who were really literate and they kept these amazing diaries, and you're like, holy shit, or and the same thing with the Civil War,
Yeah. Well, I know that you're laying the foundation for the play that you wrote. What got you interested in acting in the first place?
Oh man. Well, I was dumped by a chick and I wanted to impress her. So, all right, so we'll go back.
And so you landed on acting.
So, all right, so
Most people are like, I'm going to go to the gym, sculpt my guns, get a beach body, an 8-pack, find a hotter chick,
yeah.
and walk around with her.
No.
You're like, hold on, Shakespeare.
Well, I didn't have many skills going on, right? So when I graduated, so the thing is, I'm blind in my left eye, and so when I
Always?
yeah,
Like blind?
Yeah, so when I was 4, so I had an accident, and so
Hold on. Do you think you're going to escape without talking about the accident?
yeah, well, I mean, my sister threw something and basically took my eye.
Okay.
And my dad wasn't there, and so yeah, so kind of that's how I grew up. But what was I going to say? So when I played football in high school, and so when I graduated, when you play football in high school, you're always like all the recruits are trying to call you because you're like on this A list of recruits to get you to come and join. And I remember I had a waterbed. Did you ever have a waterbed?
No. I'm going to gauge Michael's knowledge on this one too. Have you ever experienced a waterbed?
I mean, I know what they are. I don't know. I've never.
Have
had
you
one.
ever seen one in real life?
No.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
I tell you what, his life experience compared to ours, I worry, not about him, but I worry.
Yeah, you worry.
Even though, first off, here's a question. Whoever thought that a waterbed was a good idea?
Well, they were great because they would stay cold.
Yeah, they would also destroy your back due to
No,
lack of lumbar support.
I mean, when you're 14, 15, that doesn't matter.
True. But
And there are also benefits that we both know about that.
Are you talking about sexual benefits?
Yeah.
Riding the tide?
Yeah.
I have no experience with that on a waterbed. I think of it from the perspective of if I had to write a list out of things that I would not, like accidents that I wouldn't want to have happen in my bedroom, about 100 gallons of water would be one of them.
Well, the biggest pain in the ass of a waterbed is if you got an air pocket in the bed.
The biggest pain in the ass of a waterbed is if it breaks.
Yeah, well, I never had one that broke, but yeah. Anyhow, I had a waterbed. So these recruits would call me and they would say, "Hey, I heard you just finished high school and you played football. I think you'd be a great Marine. Won't you come recruit?" And I said, "Well, that sounds great. I just got to let you know that I'm also blind in my left eye." And he'd be like, "Oh, well,
maybe it's not for you.
I think you're going to have a good life, son, but I don't think maybe the Marines is for you." And then, I don't know, a couple of weeks later, the Army would call, same story.
Yeah.
And I would tell them, "I think you're going to have a good life, son, but I don't think the military is for you." And I think the Coast Guard called, and I believe, I think, in the Navy. And I remember I was getting these phone calls. So when that finished, I really thought that was my last connection to the military. I was like, I'll have no connection to the military. I would never think about the military.
But acting was not some burning passion. Doesn't
No.
sound like there was a family history of people coming from that world.
No. So what happened was, I was always a good student in high school, but I got high before my SAT. Fucked that up. Not a good. I would advise you not to take your SAT high or drunk.
Can't you take it again though?
I did, but my parents didn't have much money, and so I just figured I'm not going to go to college.
Walk me through that decision process of taking the SAT and getting high first. You're like, I know what. This is a really important test, so I'm just going to mellow out a little bit.
Well, I never even studied for it. I never even prepared for it. I mean, I just assumed I had to take it. You had to take it.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to do well in school. I'm not going to go to college. I didn't see an opportunity for me to go to college. I just didn't see it. So it doesn't fucking matter. And so, of course, that, not a good decision. But my plan really was to go work with my dad, on the ships. I figured I'll just get a job, make some good money. He made okay money. And I thought, as a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, I'll be fine with that,
Well, you mentioned earlier there was some trauma involved in your childhood.
Yeah.
What was going on there?
So my dad was kind of a verbally violent. He was also violent, but he was very verbally violent in the house.
How were his parents towards him? Where did
He
where do you
kind of
think
grew up
came
in
from?
he grew up in the street. He came to this country with nothing. He didn't, in retrospect, as I look back, my dad passed now. He passed about 5 years ago, 6
I'm
years
sorry.
ago. No, it's okay. But I'm just thinking when he passed. But I don't think he knew how to love. Right? I don't think it was ever taught to him. And for his mind, because he grew up in the streets, came to New York. I mean, he had some issues in New York, and then he got a second chance, and he kind of built a life. And for him, if you had milk in your refrigerator and a stereo in your room, you were doing good, And that was his version of success as a father to us. I was one of five, 4 sisters, 3 were stepsisters. And my mother was Colombian, and she had come from her first marriage with 3 daughters when she was 16. So there was just a lot of violence, a lot of yelling, some physical violence between my parents. That's kind of where you learn your mechanisms. You learn how to, you just learn how to hide, and you learn how to, I think when you ask, is it conscious or subconscious? I think it's a part of both, because I think you force yourself to ignore it, right? To make it go away in some way, either hiding under. I mean, I would hide under. We had a bathroom sink, and I would hide underneath the bathroom sink, faucet, like a cabinet. I would get inside of it, or underneath the bed, or in the closet. I would go in there until things would subside, and then that shit proceeded through high school. By then you get. You're like, fuck, here we go again. You kind of, you're like, fuck.
Did you guys ever talk about it as you got older as a man? Did you discuss?
Fuck no. Fuck no.
Really?
Between me and my dad?
Yeah.
Fuck no. No.
What do you think would have happened if you would have brought it up?
I mean, I would have had to been more, we both would have had to been more emotionally intelligent to do that. I don't know. I think he probably would have said, I did the best I could. And he said that. He said that a lot, and he did, and to a degree.
I think the important part is what you just said, to a degree.
Yeah.
Did he ever apologize for his behavior?
No. I mean, it goes so deep, man, with my sisters, because, they were his stepdaughters, and so that caused a lot of stress financially as well. My mom was great. My mom is the reason why I got to go to college and how I got my life, but I don't think she was, as you get older, you see your parents as people. When you're there and you kind of get retrospective and you start looking
When
at
you're
them.
younger, they're the answer to every question, problem that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How much distance do I have from this? Right here. Is this good?
I think so. Michael, you let me know.
Just a little closer.
Okay.
He gets really get in there, Yeah, as you get older, you realize your parents are 100% human being.
Yeah. They were trying
fumbling their way through life just like you are.
Yeah, and it was harder for them, because things were harder. You think about what your mother had to do. She had to fucking wash diapers and shit, and make baby food, life was much harder back then especially for immigrant parents who were considered outcasts,
Is your mom still alive?
My mom is still alive. And my mom was also patriotic. I remember when I was in school, they would give you kind of like a census, it was basic, male, white, Hispanic or African American, something. And I spoke Spanish, I speak fluent Spanish, so I would check Hispanic. And I remember I told my mom that one day, and she said, don't you fucking ever do that again. I came to this country for you to be American. Don't fucking throw that away. Never click Hispanic again. You're an American, You were born in this country. I had you in this country. You're an American. So, and it's funny, these little seeds that your parents plant in you, they flower in different ways as you get older, right? You don't, I said, okay, sure, I'm an American.
So you're back now to football.
Yeah, and so
Hearts broken.
Hearts
and
broken.
So revenge will clearly be
so my
being in
mom
a play.
So my mom was not going to allow me to go work with my dad. She goes, "You're going to college," and so she basically, I partied a lot. I did drugs. I experimented with everything, everything. And so she said, "You're going to go to college, and you're going to get away from your friends." So without me knowing, she had driven to Lufkin, Texas, to find out how can she get her son enrolled in junior college in Lufkin, Texas.
How did she pick there?
I think she fucking threw a dart the furthest away.
I was going to say, I mean, that is not near Hoboken.
Well, no, I was in Houston at that
Houston
time.
at the time. Okay,
I was in
okay.
Houston. And so I remember she goes, "You're going to Angelina College." I said, "What?" She says, "You're going to Angelina College. You're going to get a 2-year degree." And I said, "Okay." And she says, "It's not even negotiable. You're going to college. You're not going to go work with your dad. If you want to work with your dad afterwards, you can. But right now, you're going to get a 2-year degree." You know, she came from that class where education was so important to her, you know. And she wanted me to have an education. She wanted her kids to be college educated. So she fucking packed a duffel bag and a couple things. I can't remember what else, and you know, football. I think I took a football with me. Fuck, who knows? In case I was going to throw football with someone.
Takes up a lot of space in the suitcase.
Yeah. And she dropped me off, and she sat me in front of the dean, you know, and I remember, and the dean said, "Well, if he keeps I actually was a good student, besides my SATs. I had a B average, and I had a really passion for math, and so I took, you know, advanced algebra, and I was really good at it. And he said, well, he's got all the core classes, and he's got good grades. He says if he wants to go to major college afterwards, and if he has to maintain a C average here, and if he maintains a B average, he can go into major college without a 4-year school without his SAT scores. So I said, okay, great, you know. So I was going to major in business as a business associate degree. It was like the first week of class. There was this black kid, and he stood up and he says, "I'm going to be an actor." His name was Marcus Wiley, and I will never forget him. He's like, "I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to be famous." And I remember I had just broken up with my girlfriend. I dated her. I dated her all through high school. She was a junior when I was a freshman, so I was kind of like,
damn, you're swinging in the big leagues.
I was swinging in the big leagues, and so I was devastated. And the irony about this story is that I broke up with her, and then she got with someone else, and I was like, fuck, why did I do that? I should have never done that. It teaches you, be careful what you wish for. And I was full of myself, and I learned life quickly taught me a lesson of humility.
Yeah.
And
so you heard this guy say, "I'm going to be an actor and famous," and you're thinking,
I'm going to do it.
Me too.
I'm going to do it. Because she was going to Stephen F. Austin, which is not too far from Lufkin. So it was only like 30 minutes away. It's a 4-year school, not too far up. And it was in a town called Nacogdoches. And I said, well, can anybody audition? And he said, yeah, man, you should audition. It's open auditions. It's right after class. So I went. I used to break dance really bad. And my audition was to be an alligator.
what?
Yeah, well, it was a children's show, so she said, can you, what kind of animal can you do? And so I used to do the centipede. Remember the centipede in breakdancing?
Yeah. Are you aware that alligators don't move like that?
Fucking did I know. So I would do the centipede, and I would make a noise as an alligator. So anyway, she cast me. And
All right. So your first role is a centipede alligator. My God.
Centipede alligator.
Okay.
And then before we get off, I want to give you this gift.
Okay.
Yeah, and so she loved what I did. She cast me in another children's show. And then she said,
What were you then, like a giraffe horse?
No, I played a monkey. I played an alligator, a monkey, and then I played. I was another animal. I played a parrot.
Okay. What was the first human being you played?
Well, so then what happened was, so she goes, you're really good as an actor. If you major in theater, I can give you a theater scholarship, and it'll pay for your books and it'll give you a little bit of money.
Okay.
So I thought, sure. And so I told my mom. She goes, do it, you know. And so I was able to keep my business associate degree and major in theater. So I started studying acting, and I never thought
What
of
does
myself
that
as an
actually
actor.
mean?
Studying acting?
Yeah. Do you study people? Do you study mannerisms? Do you study
Oh, man,
dialect?
It's everything. You start reading plays. You start studying playwrights. You read the classical plays. You read Shakespeare. You work on, how to move your body.
Yeah.
Basic acting stuff. You make weird noises. Basically, what they're trying to do is get you out of yourself.
The self-consciousness?
Yeah, but so I moved a lot too. I lived in. I was born in L.A. Then I moved to Buenos Aires, Argentina. Then I moved to Bogota, Colombia. Then I moved to Houston. So I was the new kid a lot. And then then there was divorces, separations.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would go to another school. So my self mechanism was being a jokester.
Extrovert, yeah.
Yeah.
Like the forced extrovert.
Yeah, and so I would always make people laugh, and I became a really good at studying behavior. I knew who to stay away from and who I can kind of become friends with, and so it was being a jokester was really easy for me. And so then, the second year at Angelina, she cast me in a real play. I played a drunk. It was a play called God's Favorite by Neil Simon. It's a really well-known play, but it's the modern story of Job, where Job loses everything, and I played his drunk son. And they would have these competitions, and you would do these plays against other junior colleges around the state. And I got best in acting, and the play was it was putting on a glove. I knew how to be drunk. I knew how not to get along with my dad. I knew how to be depressed about it. I knew how to yell about it. So it wasn't a hard stretch, but they loved it, and I was awarded. And so, but what was really cool about it is I never really saw myself as an actor. And that second year, all like the staff, they started to look at me like a real actor. And so then that year finished, I was going to go work with my dad, and we were having these competitions where everybody was going to audition for major universities. And I went, and again, I guess my lack of confidence, I didn't prepare anything for it. And I had my theater director then, he goes, "Well, you're going to audition for the schools, right?" And I said, no. His name was Mr. Vaughn. And I said, no, I think this was great. I was able to pull the wool over people's eyes. I got some money, but I think I'm done with the acting gig. He goes, you are. Get up in my hotel room. You're going to memorize this monologue, and you're going to audition. And I said, "Are you sure?" He goes, "Yeah, you're going to memorize it tonight, and you're going to audition tomorrow." And the monologue he gave me was a play from Talley and Son. It's a dead Vietnam soldier who comes back to his life. He's dead, and he kind of watches his family move on.
Oof, that's a rough optic.
It was. It's a beautiful play. And some people are depressed. Some people have moved on. And it's his whole interaction watching his family. That's the second act. So he gave me that, which is ironic, right? Because this is what I do now, is telling stories of dead soldiers.
Today's episode is brought to you by Element. Now, some people see this and they say LMNT, just like on the can that I am holding up in front of the camera. And some people call it that. It's called Element, or actually call it both. It doesn't really matter. What are we talking about? We're talking about electrolytes. We're talking about salt. We're talking about potassium. We're talking about magnesium. We're talking about really easy, portable, in these little travel containers. You can hear the shake. A variety of flavors, and now they have sparkling Element. This stuff is awesome. There's a refrigerator in the studio. Off camera, obviously, it would make no sense to have it on camera. Stocked full of those. Both Michael and I, after a nice day of jiu-jitsu, we try to do jiu-jitsu and then come in and do the episodes. We both are slamming one of those things, and it drastically helps. I do remember what recovery felt like before, and I remember what recovery felt like after. And because I'm an idiot, I ignored the advice of my good friend Rob Wolf, who is one of the co-founders, who was talking about all the benefits of rehydrating with an electrolyte beverage, to which I, of course, said, yeah, and didn't do that. So I felt like I got run over by a steamroller every time that I trained jiu-jitsu. Now, I still feel like that to a degree, but my recovery is faster and my brain works better in the days that I train, that I sweat, that fluids are pouring out of me, and I rehydrate with Element. My brain just works better. I'm not a scientist, but it feels like the electricity is moving through my body in a much better fashion. They do seasonal stuff. They do stuff where you can get hot chocolate. It's a variety of different types of salts. 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, 600 or 60, I should say, milligrams of magnesium. That's just in one of these little packets. Looks like it's the exact same thing on the sparkling. I highly recommend these. I would say dilute it more than you necessarily think. I personally think their recommended dilution is still a little bit strong for me, and I'm also trying to increase my hydration, so I double that. I'll pour half of that into a bottle of water, slam it, half of it, nurse that one a little bit longer, and that works for me because I'm killing two birds with one stone. It's used by athletes. You could use it for keto or paleo diets. It is very adjacent friendly to those type of diets, and it makes an absolute difference in performance and recovery. If that sounds like something you want to mess around with or explore, go to drinklmnt.com/clearedhot. Here's what you're going to get. A free LMNT or Element, like I said, sample pack with any purchase. And don't forget to try the sparkling, the Element Sparkling. It's a 16-ounce can of sparkling electrolyte water. And there's a variety of flavors, just like in the packets at Well. So that is Drink LMNT. Drink Lima Mike November Tango.com/clearedhot. Let's get back to the show.
I did that play and I got a full ride to Ole Miss. So I went to Ole Miss. They called me up. They said, "We love what you did. I think you'd be great here." And I went up to Ole Miss. I had 3 other offers, and I went to Ole Miss. I don't know if anybody knows Ole Miss. It's a big party school, Oxford, big football town, beautiful place in Mississippi. You had to wear a tie. Got there. I went to a football game with a bunch of girls, and I called my mom and said, "Mom, I'm going to Ole Miss." I said, "I'm going to take out some money," and I got some money from the scholarship, and this is where I'm going. And so I went there. I always kept that monologue in the back of my pocket. And that's really where my acting career kind of really took off. Now, I didn't really become a trained actor yet. I was still fucking around and still doing my thing. And anyway, I went through college.
What's considered to be a trained actor?
Movement, voice. You study the classics again. You keep studying the classics. That's the basics. Playwrights. You have pieces under your belt. You've done a lot of training on voice, vocal projection.
So I'm just trying to array this against Hollywood. What percentage of the actors that people are generally seeing on the big screen would be considered a trained actor?
Now, today, shit, probably 0.
I was just going to ask that because I swear I just saw, I think it was Russell Crowe. He was asked about an acting method, and his answer was, "I don't know what that is. I just figured it out."
Yeah. Now, I've heard him say that, but in fairness,
there's probably 1,000 people that tried that path too for him to be in that spot to be able to say that.
Yeah, and he'd been acting since he was a kid.
Okay.
Really young. Well, not as a kid, but as a teenager. And so his, quote, no method,
figuring it
out was doing work for a long time.
And being mentored probably by people who had figured it out, yeah.
Yeah, and working with other people.
So why do you think in the modern era most people are not trained actors? What, are they in this figure it out train as well?
Because everybody wants to be famous, man. No one wants to train anymore.
Do you think it shows in the final product?
I think so.
I mean, what do you think of modern cinema? Is it dog shit?
I don't think it's dog shit, but...
Here's the litmus test. This is probably the most important question I'll ask you today. Maverick, good movie or bad?
The last Top Gun?
Correct. Answer carefully.
With a seal.
Pete Mitchell is a fucking national treasure.
Okay,
right?
I was going to say I liked it. I liked it. I mean, it's top. It's Tom Cruise, man. It's good.
Yeah.
I mean, his movies are. I mean, whether you like the guy as a human being or whatever his personal life is, his movies are entertaining, man.
Yeah.
And
I'm messing with you. It's my wife's least favorite movie, so I put it on TV all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good, man. It's so good. I mean, it's a great movie, man. I mean, I watched Top Gun when it first came out, and so...
She has one question about it, and there's no real answer to it. Why would they pick some guy who'd been in the military forever? Aren't there younger pilots who could be doing this? Why does it have to be him?
Because he's Tom Cruise, honey.
I know. I try to explain that, but she's like, "No, really. How does it really work?" I'm like, there is no Pete Mitchell for real. That's a
not at that age
of like 100 people. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good movie. I mean, I think cinema's great now, man. I just don't think people. I mean, look, I'm sure.
So is there still value to the traditional acting path then, if they're able to create what they're creating now without it?
I mean, the world has changed so much now, Andy. I mean, the whole world's so different now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you see it in the military. You probably look at it sideways, how it's different now.
Different, but I don't judge the difference. I just acknowledge that it is. It's not for me to say better or worse, but it certainly is different.
Yeah, for us, I mean, everyone is on this phone now,
Yeah.
and so
But is that better or worse for actors?
you know,
And
well-
also, what does it mean to be an actor? Because you see people who certainly have no training in any traditional sense of the word, but they might have millions upon billions of people who are watching them. I mean, does that make them an actor or actress? I mean, I don't know the answer to that.
No, I mean that's the thing. Everybody wants to be famous. I mean, fuck, right now, man, you could be a YouTube star or a TikTok star or an OnlyFans star, and you can be famous, rich, and you don't even know who Shakespeare is.
Yeah. That's fair.
So it's just a different world now. I'm I don't want to age myself, but I'm in an older demographic, and so I love studying art. I love the through line. I mean, one of the beautiful things about my play is I love seeing the audience in the footlights, just seeing their heads silhouetted. I just, I love creating character, and I love, but I mean, there's more of us out there. It's just different. Also, theater's dying. Theater is struggling right now. COVID didn't help. Their reactions to COVID didn't help. People are stuck to their phones. Getting, butts in seat is always difficult. It's just a very different world. And to be honest with you, as an actor, I don't know where it's going. I don't know.
Theater specifically?
Just the whole business. And so, everything is streaming. Everyone is freaking out. Money's getting tighter. Projects. I mean, I don't know if you saw
Let's
the
not
gold.
forget AI.
AI.
Talking about being able to damn near do anything from face to voice to background to extra.
Yeah, everything. And, people's attention span is not good. You know what I'm saying?
I think it's better than most people would give it credit for if they can find something that's compelling.
Well, like this medium.
Yeah.
This medium seems to have penetrated. You can do this for 2-3 hours, right?
What do you think that is? Meanwhile, and I don't know anything about TikTok, so what I'm about to say is based off what I've heard other people say. It's a 15-second churn. That's a big gap between the couple hours that you and I will sit down and talk. And I think people, a person, could be a fan of both. I think people have the ability to have a longer attention span than they're given credit for. They're just constantly bombarded with shorter attention span stuff.
Yeah, I think we're at the end of the day we're still human and we want to learn. I mean, I'm sure you still have a hunger to learn.
Constantly. I started jiu-jitsu 6 years ago, and what I love about it is it can't be mastered.
Yeah, and I want to do
Impossible.
jiu-jitsu, and I'm dying to get into it.
What's holding you back? Don't sit here. If you're about to say I have to get in shape first,
No, I mean,
I'm going to have Michael come over there and get you.
No, I'm okay. Shave. It's just like I don't. I've got so many aches and pains from working out. I'm like my shoulder fucking hurts, my back, my knees, like.
Jiu-jitsu will fix all those.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's a zero-injury sport.
Yeah,
There's no wear and tear.
So I'm like, do I have the time to? I mean, I've seen my friends who've taken jiu-jitsu, walking around with black eyes. I'm like, do I want to do that right now?
It's a gentle art.
Yeah, it's a gentle art. So that's the only reason. But my son wrestles, and he's a good wrestler.
I just enjoy that it can't be solved.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I think, get lost in the winning or losing. I think it's more about just constantly getting better. And if you can't master it, that means that your ability to microscopically get better, because you might have to reduce your optic down to that size to notice the improvement, then it's still there. And I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's why this medium works, because people want to learn. I mean, that's how I found you. I found it really interesting. I found, again.
How did you find it? Did you get somebody share a clip with you, or I don't know if have we ever asked anybody how they found the show, Michael?
I don't think so.
I don't think it
Man,
gets. Yeah, I'm curious.
I think I found you. Have you ever been on Megyn Kelly's podcast?
Not that I'm aware of. If I have, I'm sorry, Megan, for not remembering.
Yeah.
I don't think I have.
Someone shared your clip to me. Again, because what I do with my play and vets, people share me all kinds of crap.
Oh, I bet.
And so I came across it. I loved your intro, Clear Hot, and I loved the beginning. And I remember thinking,
Oh, the radio call?
yeah, I love that. And I remember thinking, And
I've had all four people who claim to be so it's a person. And I actually have a very good friend who, with 100% certainty and specificity, knows exactly who it is. So there's the person in that radio call, which for everybody listening to this, it's not me. I've never claimed it's me. I've had no less than 4 people reach out and tell me that person is them. and none of those people were the person that my very good friend knows well.
Yeah, well, I think it's a badass intro. It's one
It's
of the
pretty
best.
sweet.
It's a pretty sweet intro.
Yeah.
And if you like military and history, you're going to get addicted to it.
Yeah, especially modern era.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I think that's how I came across you. And I just thought, this is really interesting, you know?
Well, here we are.
Yeah, and here I am. And I'm always looking for platforms to share the play because of how important I feel that it is. It's become this new artistic mission of mine. And it's hard to get press now, man. It's really hard to people just don't care. They don't want to talk about it. You know, the world's become so politicized now that unless
They don't want to talk about theater in general or the subject matter of your play.
the subject matter of the play.
Well, let's get into it. Talk to me about the play so we can kind of unpack maybe why that is.
Well, so the plays. So what happened with the play is based off of letters from vets from the revolution through the Iraq and Afghanistan. And so I kind of put it together, and I'll just take a one step back in how the play became the play. When I finally got it up in 2015, a lot of festivals had told me no, and one festival, it was a whole journey. I couldn't find a director. No one knew what to do with it, and I even threw the play in the fucking trash can. My wife pulled it out. She said, "Stop being a baby. Why don't you just memorize a monologue, go find a director, show them what you do?" And so I did that. And so I did it for 5 people. They're like, "Yeah, it's kind of interesting." And then when I finally got like a 20-minute version of it, I did it at the Bowery Poetry Club at the Lower East Side for a festival called Mano a Mano, which actually had denied me earlier. All the festival had denied me. And so when I finished the play, it's based off of letters from vets from the revolution through Iraq and Afghanistan. When I finished the play, I was just so happy, man, that I fucking got this project up because I've been researching it since 2007. And I didn't know what to do with it. I couldn't find it. And I was getting so frustrated. I mean, I would talk to directors and they would say, "I don't think anybody's into it. You know, I don't know what you want to do with that." You know, and they'd have all kinds of different ideas.
So how do you do it? Are you playing a character that is the person writing the letter?
Yeah, no, I play 14 characters.
Okay.
And each character is trying to come home, either
Okay.
spiritually, physically, or emotionally.
So this is through the lens of 14 different soldiers throughout the history.
Except one. One guy comes 3 times. He's kind of like the narrator of the play. He starts the play in the beginning. He talks about discipline. He goes, "I learned 3 things in the military. The first thing I learned was discipline." And he goes through a monologue, and I do a scene.
Does he get up at 4:30?
What's that?
Does he get up at 4:30 in the morning?
Well, we don't know, but we can assume that he gets up at 4:30. He gets yelled at a lot. He gets yelled at.
Is his name Jocko? Are you out there playing Jocko?
Yeah, I sound like Jocko in that first monologue.
Okay. He is well known for his approach to discipline and waking up at times that I prefer to be sleeping.
Yeah, I even shared the play with him when he first came on Twitter. I shared it with him, and we follow each other. And every once in a while, we'll send a message. And I told him about the play. And
Please tell me he sent you a one-word response of
Yep.
good.
Good. No, he said good. Or I once asked him, what about? It was a couple years back. I said, "Man, what about no Netflix?" He goes, "Negative." Negative.
He is a bespoke human being.
Yeah. He's stoic. He is that definition of modern stoicism.
Yeah. All right. So through the lens of soldiers,
Yeah.
except for guys there 3 times.
3 times. And so, but when I first performed it, when I thought that was going to be the end of it, a Gold Star sister came up to me. She had lost her brother in Afghanistan, and she was really, really emotional. And I really had thought, Andy, that was going to be the only time I was going to do this play. That was it. And she said, "I don't know if you know what you're doing, but I hope you don't stop because it's really important." And she had told me about her brother, and that was, I thought, maybe I'm kind of on to something. It was only 20 minutes. It was a lot of guys there in the time.
You cranked through that many people in 20 minutes.
Say what?
You were able to make it through all those characters in 20 minutes?
No, at that time it was only like 6 characters.
Okay, I was going to say, holy
no,
cow,
now
that's like 2 minutes per letter.
Yeah,
Like,
I know.
and the end. The end.
Which might work today with people's attention. No, the play now is 90 minutes.
Okay.
Now. Yeah.
I was going to say, my goodness.
Yeah, no, it's 90 minutes, man. And so, anyhow, my director, who I had paid to come on board, he was like, "Well, maybe you're on to something." He goes, "Well, do you want to keep going?" And I said, "Yeah, man, I think, maybe I can find another festival." and I like to do this play. He says, well, let's work on it a little bit more together.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
You wrote this. You put the time in to do all of the research, which I bet felt more like a passion project anyway, or an addiction or something, just a gravitational pull for you.
Yeah.
You're the one up there performing. It's a single-person show. What is the role of the director if you're the only person up there and you did all that legwork?
Oh, a lot. You know, he's I should give him a shout out.
I'm not saying it negatively. I'm just curious.
No. I mean, go here. I think you look. This is a good move for you here. Sit here.
So objective outside feedback, essentially.
Yeah, to a degree. Sometimes if you're struggling with a piece, I think what this character is going through is this. I think this is, asking questions.
Okay.
Like, why is he doing that? And you're like, I don't know. Well, you need to figure that out. 'Cause I think that's what you're struggling on. You don't know why he's saying those words. Okay. And so they kind of like a shepherd, But at the end of the day, it's your butt it's your ass on stage. So we did it. We flushed it out to 50 minutes. Again, I thought this was just going to be a passion project. I had struggled with it. I would sit in bed every night saying, please help me find a director. Please. I believe in incantations. And so I would just tell myself, please let me find a director. And I don't know.
Is that like witchcraft?
Kind of, but it works, man. Like if you want something.
Does it always work?
It does. It does.
I don't think that's true.
No, I think if there's something you want, Andy, and you stay in bed every night and you say it, it'll happen.
Why do you have to be in bed? Is this like a kink?
No, no, you don't have to be in bed, but you need to say it.
You just said you're in bed, so.
But I think if you put it out there, it comes to you. I really do believe that. So anyhow, I found my director.
I think there's a lot of people out there saying every night in bed that they want to be rich and famous that are not, might argue against that particular premise, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, well, I can dive into that, but I think if you tell yourself you want something enough and you believe that that's what you're going to do, thought leads into behavior, behavior leads into action, action leads into character, character leads into results.
That I can buy into.
Right, and so, yeah, if you just sit there and you're eating juicy fruits and bonbons and you say, I want to be a billionaire.
It's a classic pairing, though.
Yeah, if you jelly donuts, I want to be a seal, and you don't do shit, you're not going to be a seal.
You have not seen the fat seals that I have seen.
Are they getting fatter?
I don't know, but there are guys I worked with that if asked to find their dick with their clothes off,
but that's now.
It would be a search and rescue mission.
That's post-seal, right?
No.
You mean while in combat? No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
So everybody has this perception that, at least when you're in combat or you're in the military as a SEAL, when you're enlisted.
Now we're talking people who have an extraordinary amount of PSI tension on the belt buckle and top button on their pants.
What is the pressure? You mean pressure?
I mean their stomach, their belly pushing out.
How the fuck can you be a SEAL when you're fat?
That is a good question. Because supposedly there's standards that are supposed to be.
But when you were in combat, was anybody fat next to you?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. I'm not saying it was the norm.
Chubby or fat? I mean, out of shape or
both? What? We're talking land whales. Am I blowing your mind right now?
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. I mean, because you have this as a civilian, you have this perception. Soldiers, I can see that, but you have a perception that, like special op guys, Green Berets, Rangers, SEALs, that you guys are going to be in the tip top of your shape.
From a performance perspective and ability, to shoot, move, and communicate, I'd say that that's true. Special operations at large. I can only speak for the community I came from, but I'm going to reach out tonight to some buddies of mine that span the special operations community, and I'm going to ask them, did you ever serve with anybody that was fat? And I hesitate to use terms like always and never, but I feel like there's a really high level of certainty. I'm going to get some feedback that, Meal Team 6 or Gravy SEALs, we're not the only people dealing with that issue.
Well, I would have never thought that. I would have never thought that.
It's just people, man.
Well, yeah, but I mean, certain disciplines require certain things, right?
It's a grind.
Well, that I do believe, but I mean...
And at some point in time for people...
They just give up.
I wouldn't say they give up. I'll say their standards are more on a slide rule than etched into stone.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I can understand the grind to a degree because I used to be, when I trained and I was always really lean, really in shape. I was addicted to it. But I would have these, like now we have 2 kids, I was like, fuck, give me the mac and cheese. Like I've done dieting. But so I understand.
Mac and cheese is a gift from heaven.
Oh, dude.
I'm not a religious man at all, but it's a gift from heaven.
Yeah, with lobster.
Now you're talking my wife's language.
Yeah.
She's powerfully Italian.
Yeah.
Is
your wife Italian?
Yeah. You ever watch the old movie Tron movies?
I didn't actually.
Okay. Their outfits, it had like the neon. And it's actually funny if you go back and look at it now. The special effects were just absolute dog shit.
Oh yeah.
But they would drink from the water and it would make them glow more. And I feel like that's lobster mac and cheese for my wife.
Oh, she glows.
She could just pasta. She could be having a shit day or like a hard day on the mat. She's a jiu-jitsu coach.
Oh, is she really?
Yeah, she's a world champion black belt.
Oh gosh.
And but like if she's had a day, and you get some mac and cheese, a little lobster mac, and she just starts glowing.
Is that how you guys met through jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, she used to beat my ass.
Oh really?
Yeah,
You have kids?
I have 3 kids from a previous marriage.
How old are your kids now?
21, 19, and 16.
Oh, that's cool. 15 and 11.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, it's definitely wild watching
Yeah.
your kids grow up. Watching my son, it's
What's really wild is sitting here watching me blow your mind about fat seals. I'm so happy that I can provide this optic for you.
yeah, no, that definitely blew my optic. But yeah, I just would have never thought that. But so I took the play. My wife is from Scotland, and so I had performed in this festival called the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. It's a huge festival for theater. Broadway goes there, West End goes there.
Are they looking for things that perhaps they want to bring back? Like, what's the purpose of the
everything.
festivals? Okay.
It's everything. When I did it in 2005, there was 1,500 shows. When I did it in 2015, there was 3,500 shows. And I think it's even bigger now. I mean, everyone's going there for all kinds of reasons, but it's 3 weeks. It's in Edinburgh, Scotland. And so
I've been there. That's a beautiful place.
Oh, it's beautiful. I got married there at the
God,
Royal
what a
Lyceum
beautiful
Theater.
country.
Yeah. I used before my mother-in-law passed away, but we used to go there all the time to see her, and it was a second home to me, Scotland. Yeah. So my wife said that I was going to do at this festival called the New York Fringe Festival, and they went bankrupt, so I didn't have a festival. And she goes, "Let's just take you to Scotland. You've performed there. We can stay at my parents' house. You can do it there, and it'll be great." So that's what we did. I took it to Scotland. I didn't even have a name for it. I called it the American Soldier because you had to put a name down to apply to a theater.
Blank would probably be tough.
Yeah, it was called Brothers Keeper, Brothers in Arms, and then it just didn't feel right. And my wife just call it the American Soldier because that's what you're doing. You're doing the American Soldier.
What do you call it now?
It's the American Soldier. It stayed there. It just stayed that way. And so I performed. And so for people who don't know about the Fringe, it's very acceptable if you suck for people to get up and walk out of the theater. It's kind of cool to go there.
That is what I am talking about.
Yeah. And you can
Do they say anything on the way?
They don't really say anything, but they're quite happy walking out with their pint of beer. You can bring a pint in. And if you suck, you can literally see people
Real-time feedback.
Real-time feedback. We don't like your play. So you're always hoping to, and it's very common to only have like 5 people in your play, 3 people in your play. I mean, in the audience.
Is that tough as a performer to have that small of a crowd?
Fuck yeah, it's tough. I mean, there's an old saying, if there's more people on stage than there is in the audience, you should probably shut down your play. But because I was a one-man show, I could get away with it.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to have a very small audience.
Yeah, and so, but before I went to Edinburgh, you needed press to go there, and so there was this one off-Broadway theater in New York called it was called 59 East 59th, and they did a festival called Eastbound to Edinburgh. And any play that was going from New York to Scotland, you could perform for a weekend there, and anybody who didn't want to go to Scotland could see the plays that were going from New York there. And so they heard about my play, and they said, "We'd love to have you in the festival. Would you like to do it?" And I said, "Fuck yeah, let's do it." So I did it, and I was still thinking that this is not going to be much, and I was nervous. And I remember a reviewer from the Huffington Post, she was reviewing another play, and she saw the name of the play, The American Soldier. Now, this is 2015. We were deep into the Middle East. She goes, I like to review your play. Can I get a ticket? And I remember thinking, fuck, I don't want my play reviewed because she's gonna hate it, because I still didn't have my confidence in me. The last time I did it was for those 8 people on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and I was really just trying to get this play up, and it was really for me, it was just for me to do it. And she gave me a fucking crazy review, positive. She just loved it. So I was able to take that to Scotland and put it on, use it as press, use it in the magazines, because there's so many shows that people are trying to filter out what not to see. And so I was using Flawless and Powerful by the Huffington Post everywhere. At that time, the Huffington Post was a big piece of media.
Still is in some circles.
Yeah, in some circles. So it was 3 weeks run. First week, I had about more people than normal because I had family there. My wife's family was there, and I had some friends there. So I would always get 8, 9 people in the audience, And that piece of post brought in somebody from the Amnesty International Award for the United Kingdom, and they go around watching plays for theater excellence and they give a voice to the voiceless. So she saw my play on the end of the first week, and after that, my play sold out, and I was nominated for an Amnesty Award. And out of 3,500 shows, I was shortlisted in the top 100 plays to go see. So the place was packed, and everyone was seeing it. And what was really cool there is that I was always nervous doing The American Soldier, but what I didn't understand there is that a lot of Aussies, Scots, and Irish were dealing with PTS as much as Americans were.
Oh, for sure.
And they were fighting in the same battles we were. And I would finish the play, and I would just get swarmed by these guys and families. And they were like, and they would share their stories with me, and they'd be emotional, and they were saying, I fought here and I fought there, and gosh, I know you're doing The American Soldier, but this is our story,
Is it more nerve-wracking to perform in front of a small audience or a packed house?
For me, it's more I don't know if it's more nerve-wracking. It's more, you have to really drum yourself up for a small house.
Yeah.
You have to kind of focus and why am I doing this?
Do you get nervous when you go on?
I don't. Again, go back to that ability. I've always had an ability. In fact, actors have come up to me. When I was studying with Wynn Hanman, a very well-known acting teacher, I was in class with Gretchen Mol. She was a very well-known actor. She was the girlfriend to Matt Damon in Rounders. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, yeah. I know who you're talking about.
She was in my class.
Yeah.
Chris Cooper was in my class. So I was in class.
Rounders is a good movie.
Great movie.
It's a sleeper.
It's a sleeper. It's
Yeah.
a great movie. But actors would always tell me, you always had to present your work in front of in a scene, and people always say, "Fuck." People like actors would look for drugs to take to calm their nerves down.
Really?
Yeah, I swear to God. And so
Man, I don't know if that's a great profession to pursue.
No, I remember one guy particularly because I get so nervous. I don't know how you do it, And I'm like, just breathe, man. It's just, people ask me that. I did an interview not too long ago, but I experienced so much trauma that making a fool of myself in front of people was the least thing that I was worried about. Like it just
didn't even hit your radar.
It wasn't even on the spectrum. Like if I fail, to this day, if I fail, I've had a good run. It's all about the journey for me now. Obviously, I've been able to develop some understanding of where my life is going now, and some perspective, about the journey. Like here I am, my acting has brought me in front of a Navy SEAL. I would have never in a fucking million years thought.
I wouldn't put that much on a pedestal.
Well, I will.
I could tell you some stories where you might rethink your orbit of the world for that job title.
Well, for me, it's a great pleasure and honor to be in front of you. But
also, I'm not a SEAL anymore. That was over almost a decade and a half ago.
Well, ex-SEAL, veteran.
Definitely not a hero.
Okay, veteran.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. But it's all about the journey, right? And so I always had the ability I had a little bit of anxiousness coming here. Sometimes at the Kennedy Center, I have a little bit of anxiousness, but I just, I look at perspective. I tell myself something that I learned when I would get a little bit anxious or a little bit nervous. I said, these are energies, and just kind of, enjoy them, and, imagine that, this is going to be the last time you're going to have a conversation with this guy or this person or this moment, and make the most of it. And so that will always calm me down. But yeah, so I never got nervous, so to say. Anxious, yeah, you get a little bit anxious, natural human being.
Yeah.
But you focus. But having nobody in the audience or 3 people in the audience,
That's got to be tough to put it on like an A+ performance.
yeah, and so you have to kind of like what am I?
I'd say switch the optic. Like, listen, this is a practice rep, but we're going to give it everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whatever you got to do, talk yourself into it, for sure. How do you do the play? Do you go sequentially through time? Do you bounce around a little bit?
I bounce around. So I start off with I start off modern, the guy with discipline.
Mm-hmm.
He says I learned 3 lessons in the military, and he goes through discipline. And then I go to the revolution, and then I go to Vietnam, and I go to a mother who says goodbye to her son. Eleanor Wimbish, who I know the family now. She's son died in '68 in a helicopter crash, and she goes to the wall and she says bye to her son. And then after the Vietnam piece, I go to after the first lesson, I go to the revolution. Oh, I did revolution. Then the Vietnam piece. Then I go to second lesson, and after the second lesson, that same character comes back out, and he talks about teamwork. What I learned is about teamwork. He makes fun of a soldier, and then he realizes, what I've realized, that we're all in this together and no man's above another man, and the way you survive is by helping your fellow man. And that's his second lesson he learns in the military. And then I go to World War II. I do an Iwo Jima letter, and that kind of gives the realities of war. It's a really graphic piece. And then I go from there, I go to Vietnam. Vietnam Johnny, smoking a joint, talking about what being in the jungle's like, talking about people marching and protesting back home, but also wanting to get back home. And after Vietnam, I do a jacked up guy from Iraq who doesn't know which way is home. He wants to be there with his guys. He wants to come back home. Can't, no matter what his wife says, it's so meaningless and senseless. Some of the lines, I try to explain this to my wife and my friends, but they'll never understand. I go to that piece, Iraq, and then I play Afghanistan. I play a woman who she's alone, and her husband is on 3 deployments to Afghanistan, and she talks about, I'm making dinner tonight, and I realize that I forget that when I'm preparing dinner that Mike is leaving us tonight, and then we're gonna have to sit alone at the dinner table. And then I play her son, who talks about, I miss my dad. I miss when he goes away. It's not really. It's hard for me to say bye to my dad. I promised him I'd be really strong. I don't think I'm doing a really good job. And then I play a father who loses his son to suicide. Kevin and Joyce Lucy, who I know really well now, and then I play a female vet who loses her eye in combat, Nancy, who I met during COVID. And then I go to the Civil War. And then I go back to Afghanistan. I play a one-armed soldier who loses his arm in combat. He's Hispanic. And then I go to World War I. Irving Greenwald. I wrote a play for the Library of Congress, and a lot of his materials from that play. He fought in the Lost Battalion. Mm-hmm. And then I go to World War I, and then I finished the play with the last monologue. The same guy comes out again, and there's a guy he was making fun of in the middle, and he talks about now that guy loses his life in Afghanistan by an IED, and he's an Army Ranger. And when they say the goodbyes, they all put their Ranger tab at the memorial for their fallen soldiers, and then he says, "I realize now I'm part of an amazing history." But what I realize now is I'm part of a brotherhood, and he marches away. And that's the play.
Out of all those acts, is there one that's more difficult for you to do than others?
Yeah, the son, the father who loses his son. That one is always, in my play, there's always a father-son through line. Mm-hmm. Again, this life is weird. It's a love letter to my dad, even though I didn't get along well with my dad. I guess it's that looking for that father-son relationship, you know? So those were pieces that always spoke to me really emotionally. You know, when the mother says goodbye to her son, you know, so I have a great relationship with my son. Mm-hmm. And I made a point of breaking the cycle that I had with my dad.
Not uncommon.
Yeah.
Well, there's basically two ways it goes.
Yeah.
You stop the shit from rolling downhill,
or you keep
start
it up.
picking up, and you start hucking even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it. You huck it even more. So we you know, in fact, today my son called me and he was telling me his time on the 40-yard dash. He plays sports and he got I'll say it on this podcast. He got the highest English. He's a really smart kid. My wife's really smart. But his English teacher pulled him aside and said, "You got the highest score on the English final exam out of the whole." He's in ninth grade. Out of the whole ninth grade.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he was really proud, and he told me, and I
Should
said,
be.
"Yeah," and I said, "It's fucking badass, son."
Yeah. Are you doing uniform changes? What are you wearing up on
So
stage?
I wear kind of a version of a costume, you know, combat boots, you know, green pants, and a green fatigue T-shirt, and a version of a dress up army shirt, and that's kind of my only costume.
Okay.
I use props a lot. I use
What kind of props you got out there?
cups, whiskey bottles, beer cans, candles, a diary.
So what's on the stage? Is it a largely open stage?
So the stage is usually it's a flag behind me, 6x9 American flag.
Are there pictures of this online? 'Cause
Yeah.
Michael, what would Michael put into Google to pull that up? Because we can look at it on the TV and you can describe it for the viewer.
Yeah, www.theamericansoldiersoloshow.com.
I mean, that would probably be a good place to start. Yeah. Michael's a master Googler. God, this TV does weird shit.
I know.
There you are. Okay, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, you can scroll down. I think I'm trying to think where I have my more images. Yeah, you'll see, as you come down, you'll see images.
It's got to be wild being up there just by yourself. You know,
Yeah.
you might be impressed with the job title of Navy SEAL. I would rather get shot at over and over and over and over and over and over and over again than get up on stage by myself and have to do some shit like this.
Yeah, I always laugh because I used to reach out to. Can you scroll the other way? No, the
or
other
down?
way. Yeah,
There you
yeah,
go.
right there. Again, my life.
Yeah.
I find it funny that guy's going to be the DOD.
Pete Hegseth, yeah.
We think, and I think
How do you think that'll play out?
he's going to become the DOD.
I don't think it'll be easy, but I think the margins will be in his favor.
Yeah, I think so. I think with what's happened with the women getting burned in the subway in New York, I think people are realizing
That's not really a DOD issue, though.
no, it's not. But it's the culture issue that is pushing the other direction that people are going to try to push away from.
I do believe that life and politics intertwined is a little bit like a pendulum.
Yeah.
And I do believe that the reason that the outcome of the election was what it was and the color changes on the map were what they were is because people, whether they were vocal or not before, during, or after the election, they voted in the booth. And
Always.
they voted,
Your pocketbook.
they voted that the pendulum may have gone a touch too far, so we're going to course correct.
Yeah, and I think that's why.
Yeah.
I think that's why he'll get through.
Yeah. Keep on scrolling down there, Mike. Let's see what we got.
Yeah. Yeah, you can. There's links, you know. That's a great story right there. So I did the play in New Jersey once, and I've become friends with all these vets. I mean, I get messages from vets all the time, you know, and that's been why I can tell stories about vets who really broken down in the Q&As, but this one was I was in New Jersey, and I finished a play. I did a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday performance, and I remember I saw this older lady. Her name was Rose, and I saw her after the show, and she gave me a big old hug, and she was really complimentary of the work. I saw her on Saturday as well. I said, were you here yesterday? Because, yeah, I needed to see it again, son. I just think what you're doing is so special, so beautiful. Then I saw her on Sunday with two friends. She had brought two older ladies as well. And they were all civilian nurses who went to Vietnam to help the Red Cross. And she wrote me this note. I have this letter, and so I asked her permission. Everybody who I have here,
course, yeah.
I have their permission. And she said, if you ever hear a bird singing in the trees, that's me singing your prayers. And
I mean, okay, of all the things people could ever say, I did not think you were going to say that.
yeah. But I mean, I can tell other stories too. I mean, if you go up to the menu, I'm sorry, I forgot. Michael. I don't know why I was confused.
Or Michelle.
Michael. If you go to, so I'm sorry, scroll down. Keep going down, veteran letters. Keep coming down, I'll tell you. It's just keep smoothly coming down. Keep 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 coming down. Right there, go up, right there. See where read veteran testimonials? Right there, yeah. Click that. And if you go up a little bit, see that chopper? Yeah, that chopper one on the far left.
The Apache, yep.
Yeah. So that guy, no, not that one. Far left, that was the Vietnam. She was a very powerful message. She saw me in Iowa. So I kept he asked me to hide his name. I did it the place taking me everywhere. I mean, I've done chocolate factories, the Kennedy Center. Mm-hmm. I did it on Bannerman Island, right across from West Point.
Yeah. How many times have you performed it now?
Man, I've done the play now 10 years now, but it's been in over 40 cities, 35 states.
Do you want to continue doing it, or are you thinking ahead the future to a new project?
Or
can you do both simultaneously?
I think you do both simultaneously. For a long time, I was wondering if the message was not wanted anymore.
It's going to wane and wax.
I definitely believe you wane. When you say wax, you mean like crash?
Ebb and flow.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's what's happening. But I keep getting bookings. People keep wanting to see, and that was kind of when I reached out to you because I've seen it's been really interesting. The play has so many different layers, but it's been really interesting when I go to small towns, Tumwa, Iowa, Champaign, Illinois, Red Hook, New York. A lot of the people who love the play, who want to see the play, are an older demographic that are trying to remember the America that doesn't kind of exist anymore, and they're holding on. And they're in these small towns that it's been hollowed out by all the manufacturing. They're gone. There's no jobs there, and all the young people have left. And I've kind of noticed this layer in the past couple of years. As I've been doing 3-4 years now, I've been doing the play in these small towns. I mean, I did the Kennedy Center this year, which was DC, big, city, but it's been really fascinating me to see what we've done to the small town with the manufacturing. All the jobs being shipped away, and these small towns now are being held by old American veterans from Vietnam, Korea, some from Iraq, and they're trying to hold on to they're trying to remember or hold on to a version of America that is. It's been forgotten or is being ignored. And I find that parallel really fascinating to me now because as we ignore vets are struggling, especially with the debacle of Afghanistan recently. Now it's the same parallel what we've done with the manufacturing jobs in our town and these small towns that are being hollowed out, completely hollowed out because the young base is leaving because there's no work there because there's no jobs there. And so the only thing that's left there basically is old Americans who grew up there who haven't left and immigrants who, the waiting tables or whatever. And they're the ones who are holding the town together in a weird way. But slowly these towns are really dying out, And I mean, I was just in Bloomberg, PA. I did it twice there. They brought me back. And I was the fire they made me the parade marshal and then
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
It was cool, but then they had like the high school kids, and they did the Pledge of Allegiance, and they sang the Star Spangled Banner, and so it's small towns that are trying to hold on, and then when they see the play, they're like, why doesn't everybody see this play? How come no one doesn't know this play? So I have found that, and I don't know what the answer is or what that means, but I found that a parallel track between how we've treated a lot of our vets and what we've done to our manufacturing jobs in our small towns. Does that make sense?
It does. I can see some parallels there, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've lost, when NAFTA started, probably around 1 million jobs that have been kicked out. 2 out of 3 jobs are overseas now. So I don't know what that means, but I do know that it is kind of cool doing the play in these small towns and giving these guys, I don't know what, hope or feel good, making them feel good about, what they did, what they served, what the country means to them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of...
I think it reminds people what the cost is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what's really... You asked me about the, can I keep going? And I wonder about that,
Well, do you want to?
Where I get really turned on is when, at the end of the play, vets are coming up to me and sharing me their stories. The play is really, it's 90 minutes, but it's kind of like 2 acts. You have the first act, which is the play, and then we have a Q&A afterwards, which started organically because I couldn't get off stage because people wanted to find out what my deal was. Did I serve, which I did not. Why am I doing it? Where'd you get the material from? What's the deal?
I wonder if you could almost create an extension of it or another play based off the interactions you've had with vets after.
Yeah.
Because you're probably bombarded with stories.
Oh, dude, it's endless. I mean, I've had stories. I mean, I guess we can talk. I mean, so this guy right here. So when I did it at Bannerman,
JC?
His name is. We'll just say his first name is John, but
Easy. Don't be doxing people. All right.
Big dude, big guy. He's probably 6'4", 6'5". And I was outside in front of Bannerman Island, and he was standing like this in the back. It was outside performance, and I remember thinking, this guy's gonna fucking give me the riot act. Like, this guy's gonna tell me, who the fuck do you think you are doing these letters?
Just because people are big sometimes doesn't mean they're scary.
Yeah, well, when they don't smile, it leans into scary.
That's called an RBF.
What's an RBF?
Resting bitch face.
Oh, resting bitch face.
It's taught in the military.
Yeah, so he was a medvac crew chief gunner, and anyhow, he came up to me and he says, "Can I talk to you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he just broke down in tears. This big old dude hugging me, crying. And then we sat down, we talked, and he told me his son was serving in Syria, and he was dealing with PTS, and he was worried about him. And we talked about the play, we talked about what it meant, and he's a great guy. That was in 2017. He texts me all the time. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then there was another. If you go back, I know all these stories. Candy Close. She talked about PTS. Scroll down a little bit. So this guy here, so he saw me in New Hampshire. He took his life, unfortunately. Rest in peace. But he, saw me in New Hampshire, told me his story.
Yeah.
And his mom called me and let me know that.
Is that Arlington on the left?
Yeah.
Have you been?
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Plenty of times.
I don't have the words for how overwhelming that sea of white headstones is.
Oh man, it's quite somber. It's quite hollow ground there. I've been there many times. Every time I go to DC, I try to go.
Yeah.
So these people, they write me their stories. They write me their letters, and I've become friends. With Kevin and Joyce Lucy. They lost their son. He took his life, and he fought in Iraq, and that was a crazy story because when I was performing it, throughout the whole time, someone would always say, "Hey, I know that letter," and I said, and then I thought, "Fuck, by luck, by chance, did I pick this guy's family or something, And then he says, "No, but it's like my grandfather, or it's like my mother, or like my dad." But in Cape Cod, this guy stands up because I know that family. Those are the Lucys, and I was like, "Holy shit, that is," because I know the character's name, Chef Lucy, and he says they would want to meet you, and so he hooked me up with them. The father wrote a book. And I was nervous when he called me. And a lot of them, especially the Gold Star families, they're just really grateful that I'm keeping their families, their
name's not forgotten.
Yeah, their name's not forgotten. And they text me all the time. Every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, I get a beautiful message from Kevin Lucy. They came and saw my play for the first time in Connecticut last year, I think it was, which was kind of scary, doing his son's story, his story about his son in front of them.
I bet they loved it.
They did. They're beautiful people, man. They're so supportive, and they always tell me, thank you for not forgetting. And then, Eleanor Wimbish, there's, Dear Bill letter was a very famous letter. So, I do these letters, and you do the play long enough and you start knowing the families and they start reaching out to you. And so you wonder, do I keep going? But, 30,000 vets have taken their lives since 9/11.
Far more than killed in combat, for sure.
Yeah, seven or a little bit more than 7 died in combat.
I think it's in the low 8s, but again,
yeah, 7
let's
or 8.
just say it's very, very, very safe to say that the suicide deaths have eclipsed that.
Yeah, it's times 4.
Yeah,
it's times 4. And one of the things that a lot of the vets have always told me, who have seen the play, have said, the play is really important because it reminds people what, like you said earlier, what the sacrifice was.
Yeah, the cost.
And they want people to know, but they can't say it. And so I think that's been the success of the play. The success of the play has been that it depicts reality. It's a clear version. I mean, I've become friends with a lot of veteran therapists as well, equine therapists, canine therapists, and they've all said, this play is so great because it's the only way I can explain to people what PTS is. It's the only way I can explain it. And so how it keeps going, I was in Texas just last year, and when I finished the play, I was talking gab with people in the theater, and I saw this guy up and sitting down, and he was just staring at me. This was just last year, and Thanksgiving, in Fredericksburg, Texas, and I looked at him to the corner of my eye and thinking, I said, "Are you all right, man?" I said, "Do you want to talk?" Because a lot of times they just want to talk to me privately. And he started walking down the theater, down the steps, and he just literally fell in my arms and broke down. And he had done 7 deployments. He was a Marine, and he told me all of his buddies have taken their lives. He was the only one left. And so I never know what to say, really, besides...
There's nothing you can't say.
Yeah. I told him not to give up. I told him to talk, find passion. And I tell him, I have a line in the letter, you owe it to the guys who didn't come back to stay here. What do you say? Any suggestions?
I listen, usually.
Yeah.
Try to remind people that nothing is permanent unless you make it. Nothing lasts forever. High points, low points might seem like it's going to, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
Unless you make a really shitty choice.
Yeah. I get that question a lot.
Yeah. It starts with being able to listen, hear them out, hear how they're feeling. Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one for sure.
Yeah, so you wonder, how much important the play is. But like this year, so I'm supposed to go back to Virginia to the American Revolution Museum. I just got called, and they want me to perform it for what's the base on Kentucky and Tennessee? Is that the 82nd?
Could be. Not super familiar with the Army bases.
Yeah, there. So they want me to bring the play there. Apparently some generals want to see it. Where else am I going? The Citadel.
Well, we can do better than that. Unfortunately, I got to get you back to the coffee shop in like the next 10 minutes.
Great.
Where can people reach out to you?
To that website, theamericansoldier.com.
Is there a contact down there? Like if somebody hears this and they're interested, they want to bring it to wherever they are. That's the place to do it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you want to leave people with closing thoughts wise?
I think, but before we close, I want to give you this.
What is it?
All right. So,
not be a dildo wrapped inside of that.
Damn it. I have a friend of mine who hunts.
Okay.
He's a big time hunter, and he makes these knives.
Okay.
And fuck, I left the card. Oh, well, anyway, you don't need the card.
If only we were connected via electronic means.
Yeah, but it's at squidlowcreations.com. I told him I gave it to him. I give him a shout out, but it's a really good metal. He's a big time hunter. I can tell you, if I had time, I'd tell you an alligator hunter. We used to go out. We used to go
sharp.
We used to go gator hunting.
Please tell him thank you for me. That's awesome.
Yeah, Yeah, so at squillowcreations.com.
Okay.
And so I wanted to give you that. Thanks for having me here, brother.
Of course. What do you want to leave people with?
I thank you for everyone's service. I think it's important that we keep these stories alive. I think it's critical as a society that we remember those who are willing to raise their right hand to fight for us, and not forget, because as a nation, if we forget these stories, I think in a kind of like what I was talking about the towns, we start hollowing out ourselves as a nation.
I agree.
And I think it's important. And the Greeks knew that. The Greeks would have ceremonies. The Cherokees knew that, and so it kept the fist of the society and the fighters together, and they were able to always be connected, and they always understood each other. And so when they had to do service or sacrifice, they were willing to do it because they knew the people behind them were gonna knew their sacrifices, and I think that's important. So, I think that's what I would like to leave. I'm just grateful to be here, brother.
I'm glad you made the trip, man.
Yeah.
We'll do it again for sure. Thank you for coming out.
All right, man. Bye.